What is up, everybody? Dak here, back with a new, I suppose it'll be a series, on the new Mazda box build. This box is going to be kind of special, as boxes in the past I've had have been very primarily function over form, whereas this one I'm still going to be going with function because I can't get over that, but hopefully it's going to have a bit more of an aesthetic form. So this one is going to be kind of, yeah, as I mentioned in my last video, it's going to be more of a typical old school build, where it's going to be, instead of a fewer high power subs, it's going to be more lower power subs, and also it's going to be featuring Class AB amplifiers. Now, for those who remember, in the Mazda box build, the original one, the 6th order, there were two Class AB amplifiers, which were 500 watts apiece. And this build's going to be using the same two amplifiers, except it's also going to be using a 700 watt 4-channel amp. So we're going to be up around the 2000 watt mark of Class AB, hopefully. So that'll be quite cool. But yeah, this will be episode 1, where I'm just going to talk about the build and probably get some progress started on it. So yeah, just some more information on the build. This is the spot it's going to be going in, the boot of the Mazda, the new one, which is pretty well identical to the last one, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get another Mazda 3, so the other box could go into this car if I wanted to, but I've decided against that as well. The other box actually makes a really good home theatre sub that I haven't used at all yet, but it does. But yeah, it of course gives me opportunities to grow. And well, you know, JT, can't remember the numbers after his YouTube channel name, link in description or on screen, or picture on screen, has 1515s in his Tahoe. Budget Audiophile, who pops around on this channel, has 1818s, or I think it might be even more now, something ridiculous like that. And well, I'm just a babby, so I'm going to be going with 1010s in a ported box, but they're going to be nicely arranged. So what I'm thinking of right now for the box is basically, and just for reference, this boot's about, or trunk, however you want to say, is about 1 meter wide, and the last box was internal volume net 300 litres. So this one's going to be right about the same, so about a cubic foot per 10-inch driver. But I'm currently thinking 1, 2, 3, 4 up there, and then 1, 2, leaving a space here of 2 by 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the ports here and here. Now, of course, I could make it just like that, but instead I'm going to be trying to angle them in and angle these ones out, and then have the ports, and then once again on the other side, and kind of tilt them in so it's a bit like a bowl shape, and it all curves down towards the ports, as that should also help it acoustically. So in order to do that design though, I'm going to be really restricted on volume, as all these features take up airspace essentially. So I'm going to be needing to make the box as volume efficient as possible, which is why instead of going with 1-inch ply like I did with the last box, for this one I'm going to be going with, it's a bit less than 3/4 inch. 1 inch is about 25 millimeters. This wood is 17 millimeters. So yeah, it's quite a bit thinner, but I'm going to be making up for it with more bracing. So that's going to be the idea. It's kind of more of an engineered. For those who don't know what kind of a vague definition of engineering is, it's being able to achieve the same task using as few materials or as little money as possible. For example, you could make a bridge out of solid iron, but making it out of girders, which are a lot lighter, can achieve the same goal for a lot less money. So that's kind of what engineering is in principle, and that's what I'm going to be going with. Instead of brute forcing it with a big thick bit of wood, I'm going to be doing a bit of honestly a bit of educated guesses towards the design. I could sit down with a pen and paper, but But yeah, worst case scenario, I can just add more bracing if I really have to. I mean, that's a good thing about building something yourself. You can take it apart and reassemble it if need be. There is just one annoying thing about this car, which is these things right here that stick out. They go past this wall flush, and yeah, so I'm currently deciding what to do with these if I do remove them. In the last Mazda, I removed them completely, and so it was just more or less the bare seatbelt mechanism under there showing. But the old sub box did cover it up with a panel back there. This one, however, I could do that, but also I'm still thinking about that. That's one of the tricky bits. But one thing for certain is I'm definitely going to be using the whole floor right here. And something very convenient about this car is this whole area is covered with this bit of carpet. So hopefully I should just be able to take this out, lay it on the piece of wood over there, trace it, and it'll be exactly the right shape. And two, I'm kind of wanting to follow this contour along the edge, which I didn't do with the last two boxes. I just had it dip back and then fit the amplifiers in the gap back here, but I'm going to be instead, I'm also thinking about where to put the amplifiers. Now, I would make a separate unit for them, and like a box that would sit somewhere on the passenger seat, just for the sake of making the box a bit bigger and a bit lighter to take in and to put in and out. But the issue with that is, since I'm going to be going with all three of the amplifiers over there, and I'll be at about 2000 watts, I could really do with an extra battery in here. So with an extra battery on one side and then the amplifiers on the other side, there'd be no back seat. Well, there would be a back seat, but people wouldn't be able to sit in it. There's no leg room. So I think I'm willing to sacrifice one side for the battery, because then somebody could always just sit and avoid, well, just put their legs over the other side, I suppose, something like that if they needed to. And I'll put the amplifiers on the box itself, which will be behind the seat right there. So that's going to take away some volume. All this fancy stuff in here is going to take away volume. So that's why I'm going with the engineered concept. And by the way I'm going to be doing the speaker positions is I'm thinking I'm going to make rings, maybe more like a typical door speaker build you'd see, which is where you make rings out of plywood or MDF, and then you just put them where you want them and have bracing going to them. But instead of having fiberglass, what I'm probably going to do is have as much of it be plywood as possible, mainly big flat areas, but then for where I do need maybe a bit more of a complex curve, I've got plenty of fiberglass and foam to deal with that. But I definitely don't really want any fiberglass directly between the pressure inside the box and outside the boxes, unless I bulk it up with quite a few layers, or it's a really tiny gap, in which case I may as well just bridge it with glue and that, and put a bit of wood in there. Then yeah, there's not a whole lot of points. So yeah, I don't want to get too fancy with the fiberglass, but if I have to, then well, I have to, I'm willing to. So I think, yeah, the first thing though to do is to take out this bit of carpet right here. Also, I'll put some pictures up now on screen, talk about it. I did just make, for the sake of better to be safe than sorry, I got the driver and the 10-inch driver I'm going to be using, and I measured its specs and everything, and it indicated that it could be decent as low end, even though the driver itself is only talked about as more of a woofer or even a mid-range speaker. But I had a feeling it could do bass. So I made up a cubic foot box, which is of course a 1/10 of the 10 cubic foot box, which is going to be in here. Slot port, tuned it to approximately 30 hertz. I think it ended up being 28 or 29, so pretty good. And gave it a listen, and man, it did a fantastic job of lows. So I'm really keen, and now that I've got that extra bit of confidence, yeah, I know I can go ahead with this build without being disappointed at the end. Fingers crossed, yeah. But of course, at least with this build at first, I'm just going to be reusing those amplifiers there. And so I'm not spending money on amplifier, just subwoofer. And by the way, I figured just quickly I'd mention the wiring configuration in this build. Now, of course, if I'm going with two 2-channel amps and two 4-channel amps bridged, so basically 2 mono amps and 1 stereo amp is kind of how you'd think of it. Yeah, there's a bit of a problem when trying to drive 10 subwoofers. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. So currently the configuration I'm thinking is 3 drivers in parallel at 8 ohms each, down to 2.7 ohms per the 500 watt amplifiers. And the 4-channel amp, I'll be running it, it'll be running 4 speakers, 4 subs total. So that one will be running just at 4 ohms per channel, so it'll be happy. All right, so here's the current state of the boot. I've got the plywood cut, and I pretty well just put in the carpet, traced it out, and then jigsawed out this piece so you can see the curve right across here. As for this piece, what I did was I got this ruler right here, except imagine if the flat surface was facing down, sat it on the wood, and then I got another ruler, and basically right here I sat that there, then I leaned the other ruler against it and measured up, so I got the distance of about 43 centimeters. And then I did the same thing right here. I lined up the ruler with pretty well this point right here, and then measured how far along it was along that. You can see that mark there and that mark there. They're slightly out for whatever reason, and up here it's, yeah, slightly out by the same distance. So I don't know what that is. Possibly it just could do sliding this way a bit more. But yeah, that's how I did that. And then I also just had it at 1 foot, went along until I hit that point, and then took that distance. And then as for the curve itself, all I did was just draw the straight lines there, and then just sort of approximate a curve just to get that bit more. So I did end up taking off this side up here, because to take it off, it is a single screw and one of those panel clips, such as that right there. So now the reason why I'm not using the microphones right now is because I wanted to keep a bit more freedom to kind of show what's going on here. Here's the 4x100 watt amp, which by the way, 4x 110 watt at 4 ohms, or 4x 175 watt at 2 ohms, or 2x 350 watts at 4 ohms bridged. So yeah, that's currently what we're looking at here. You can see, can I zoom out slightly? There. Alright, so now you can see how that kind of lines up, and it really just barely fits. And yeah, when I say just barely fits, keep in mind right now, the terminals for the power and the speaker terminals are touching the bottom wood. Like, there's zero clearance beneath them. So yeah, that's going to take some figuring out. I could possibly, if I can bunch them tightly enough, I'd go get the other amps, but they're all sandwiched together on a plate right now, and I think bolted. I might do that though, but and line them up next to each other, then take a notch out of the bottom, and then I could possibly get a bit more volume either side of the amplifiers. And I know it might sound a bit ridiculous, just because all I'd really get is about 3 liters. But something else, another effect that would have is, if I've got a really tight gap around the amplifiers, if I do put a fan in there, all the airflow is past the amplifiers, and it doesn't have a good chance to just kind of float around and get wasted. So here's what we're looking at with the 3 amplifiers in there right now. Yeah, 430 mil for the big one and about 375 for the small ones. This is also, you can see we've got maybe about, it might be 15 centimeters gap, which is about 6 inches on either side. Yeah, 150 mil, yep. So the issue with that is with no gap between the amplifiers, which is considering these two are going to be rated loading below their rated impedance, a toasty situation with no gap. So I'm going to need at least a centimeter between them with air forced through with a fan. And yeah, this is a tight one. Now I reckon I could make it work, but unfortunately I did just think, what if I could fit all 3 amplifiers behind that double seat, and then I could have the single behind box part back there, just to get a bit more volumetric efficiency. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I think I'm just going to have to more or less center them. Now, an issue too is, now this isn't too much of an issue, but the current setup I'm going to be doing is still running off the stock Bose head unit, which by the way, mentioned in another video, it does have a roll off at about 35-40 hertz, something like that. So these two amps had paired up with them the mini DSP, and the mini DSP had basically a big old spike added to it right around the upper 20s mark, because the box was tuned to the upper 20s. I didn't want a whole lot below there, because then it would just flap below tuning, so it was just at about the upper 20s mark, and this new box is going to be tuned more or less the same. This is about 40 centimeters by 1 meter, which is 4 by 10, which is 40 decimeters. So if I take 5 centimeters off to fit the amps already, I'm already taking 20 liters, or roughly a cubic foot, almost a cubic foot out of the box. Cubic foot, by the way, is 28 liters, so not quite a cubic foot, but that would be to fit the amps. And actually, realistically, if that's about 3 decimeters and that's 3 decimeters, then I'm only getting 3 liters by, yeah, including those side bits. It's, yeah, really diminishing returns on that. So now I've kind of got to choose, since I'm committed with 1010s, I've got to decide if I'm willing to go on the smaller size of 10 cubic feet and just tune a bit lower, or fewer subs. No, I'm committed to 1010s. So yeah, I'm pretty well just going to have to prioritize fitting the amps and the DSP, as well as something else I've got to do is have an Anderson plug on this too, so I can unplug it. And honestly, I might even remove the bottom trays off the amplifiers, as it's just thin metal and it rattles, and yeah, that it doesn't really do much. And then possibly I could even also invert mount them so the boards are facing that way, and then I could put a bit of plexi over the top and have fans so it actually gets air into the guts of the amplifiers, which should also be quite an effective cooling method. And I just really hope, I might have to get some tiny 90-degree connectors for that, and I may even have to commit an audio crime of doing thinner power cable than the amps can take. I know, but they can take 4-gauge cable, and there's no way any of these amps are going to be drawing 100 amps. So I think I might just go with back what I very originally had on them, and just do a short run of 8-gauge to each amplifier from a junction, and that's where the Anderson connector would be. So that way all the amplifiers will have slightly thinner cable, just to get the tight routing, so I don't have to worry about wide radiuses or the cable wanting to spring out of location. So yeah, I think I'll go back to 8-gauge. Actually, these amps are nuts. For some reason, the company that made them decided to put 8-gauge speaker terminals on them. Christ, they only put out like 13 amps. 8-gauge, Jesus. Imagine. Come back 55mm on the bottom, have a bit of wood go right the way across, and then just double check to make sure. It's like, although this point here, it's not going straight across, so I will be able to fit maybe the very side of a 10-inch corner right there and have space here, and then I can definitely fit another one back there. Yeah, 10 inches, by the way, is about 25 centimeters. So anyway, oh yeah, this ruler's got inches on it too, or measuring tape. So you can see that would be right here, yeah, about 500mm, 1 foot 8 inches, which is very clearly past that line there. But that just means I'm definitely going to need to use this real estate for subwoofer, and then I'm just gonna have to tuck it in as quickly as possible under both sides. The middle's not so bad because it does curve out, and also because I only have the ports to deal with back here because it's only 2 drivers there and there, and then so yeah, it should be right if I've got one right up in the corner, and then these 2 can be a bit closer, and these 2, and then 2 here facing inward, and then 2 here facing backward, and then port and port. Yeah, okay. Alright, I think I might get some more measurements, write them down, and then I can 3D model it in CAD or something, as I've been getting better at that. Alright.